Okay, welcome back to Better Developer Docs. In this one, we're going to have a look at posts and pages. We're still in our beginner level 2 of WordPress in our overall WordPress 101 and customization guide. So yeah, posts and pages. What are we talking about here? A post and a page are both the aesthetic of how the viewer of your website will see your website and the content therein. So for example, this is a post. And so a post will often use its own individual template and therefore have a slightly different aesthetic than a page. Not always, but generally speaking, that's the case. And a page will use a different template and has some slightly different functionality, which I'll show you. For example, around categories. In the CMS, you'll see the posts area and the pages area. Let's go and do a little tour of both of them, and I'll show you the differences. Okay, so the posts area is here, and in the very top of the page, we'll see this area here, which is kind of just allowing us to either view all of them, just view the published, drafts, private, etc. So we've got some filters there if you're trying to find a specific subcategory of all posts. You've also got some other things here. This is a further filter. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can filter by date. You can filter by the categories that you've created. So as I mentioned in a previous video, categories are sort of a grouping system or a tagging system to group or tag particular posts into a particular category. So if you had posts just on hosting, then you could group all those together if you wanted. And that's useful because a category has a particular URL which a user can go and view to get all of the posts within that particular category. It's also useful if search engines can crawl that URL and therefore understand that you have a particular set of categories that you write about, and therefore they can understand your content better. So categories we will touch on soon, although that's kind of really all you need to know. You can actually create and manage categories from this categories tab underneath the posts tab. And so there you can create new ones, you can edit previous ones, and sort of manage categories. And then once you've created them there, then they will show up here for you to filter by. SEO scores, this is something that I actually do not use whatsoever. I don't recommend that you use it either. It's something that's added by one of my plugins, Yoast SEO, but it's kind of redundant. Same with readability scores, kind of redundant. Let's just leave those. The other thing we've got up here is bulk actions. So if you wanted to, trash all of these, then you could click that, and then you could go bulk actions and then move to trash and then apply, and that would delete all of them. Or if you wanted to, just get these first 3, you could do that, move to trash, etc. So depending on what plugins you have, you might actually have additional functionality there. I've just got those 2. And then, you can obviously scroll the different posts that you have. I've got 160 on this website, and so you can just go through each page there. Once you find a particular blog post, you can do a few things with that. So you can see each row here is its own blog post. So here I could click into the actual page itself, the back-end version of this page if I wanted to edit it, or indeed I could do a quick edit which would reveal the title, the slug. So this is the actual URL as it would present in the browser. You got different date settings there that you could alter. You could password protect it if you wanted to. You could add additional categories to this particular blog post. You could also add tags, control the comments, and the actual status as well. I'm not going to do any of those just now. You could trash it. You could view it. So that would just be opening the page up in the front end. And you can also manage, well, in my particular website, it's got this manage CSS and JavaScript. And if you follow my list of favorite plugins, which is something that I will try and link down below, then you might have this as well. But there's a plugin which adds this particular option to this row on each of the published posts, and that allows me to sort of do certain things with the CSS and JavaScript in relation to site speed. Let's go and check on the actual post page in the CMS and see how that actually operates. But before we do that, I just want to show you how you can add a new post. So in the all posts area, I showed you the filters, but there's actually an add new button here and an add new button here in the left hand menu. So if you're looking to create a brand new post from scratch, then hit the add new, and then you'll be taken through to the edit page when it actually loads up. Having internet issues at the moment. And that's how you'd create a new one. Obviously, these are the existing ones. So if you're going to manage any of the existing ones, then you can go to this area here. Okay, so we're going to look at a particular post in the CMS. And in this particular way, we can edit all of this information. So there's a couple things I want to show you here. First is just what's known as the block editor, or the Gutenberg sort of editing process, which is what would take place here. A block is WordPress parlance for a set of HTML. So for example, this is a block. This is a paragraph block, actually. This is another block. This is a heading block. This is yet another block. This is a list block, and so on and so forth. Heading block, paragraph, heading, paragraph, code block, and an image block, and so on and so on. And so when you want to add a new block to your page, or sorry, in this case post, but this actually works for pages as well, the same system, you can just add block and you have a selection here. So you can search for blocks if you have a lot of them, or you could browse all, and that would allow you to then add a quote block, a table, another quote, a pre-formatted block, different kinds of media, file, cover, and it gives you a little preview here on the right. So a cover here, you can add a video, a file, media and text. So that's actually adding an image with some text to the right. So that could be fairly useful. Design, you've got multiple columns, you've got buttons you can add, you've got rows, stacks, separators, spaces, page break, different kind of widgets. So these are blocks which actually add various kinds of information from your database. So here we've got archives. So if I was to add this, you get a preview there on screen just here, and it's showing that it would add a list of links to posts from particular time periods that you've published them on. There's a calendar you could add, latest comments. So obviously that's all the comments from your site. You could add a set of social icons. You could add a short code. We're going to cover short codes in another lecture. In another video, because those are actually convenient ways to add a lot of functionality, and shortcodes are actually also used quite often in relation to various plugins that you might have on your site, and so on and so forth, right? So you've got all these different kinds of blocks that you can add in order to create your pages. So another way to think about blocks is just the sort of smaller subunits that make up a page. My particular pages don't really get that complicated. Like I don't really need to use, query loops and post lists and stuff like that. But you may need to, and you can kind of search around and explore what you can do with these. So that's the Gutenberg block editor. And then over here on the right, we've got another set of functionality. You've actually got sort of 3 or so menus that I use. Most of the time, I'm in the post tab of this right-hand menu. And here you can do a bunch of interesting things. You can change the visibility. So at the moment it's public, anyone can see it. You could make it private if you only wanted people with admin privileges on your site to view it. You could also password protect it, just in case there is some private information that you don't want the general public to view. You can change the date of publishing. You can actually change the specific URL if indeed you want to do that. And you've got other options here, right? So you've got post format, you got author, you got some of the plugins that you have will actually also add additional functionality here. So for example, I've got a Yoast SEO plugin that adds a little bit of functionality. I don't personally use this functionality, but I just want to mention that in case there's particular functionality that one of your plugin adds for a post. You got all the categories. So we mentioned categories in a previous video, and so you can edit what categories apply to this post. Do the same with tags. You can add a featured image. This is where you would add that. You can also replace it or remove it. Excerpt, you can add that in if you want. This would be a quick description of the actual post itself. For example, at the beginning of all my posts, I put like a very short, bolded sentence or two, or 3 or 4, just to describe. So I would probably, copy and paste that if I was going to put an excerpt in there. And then an excerpt shows in various parts of your website. So for example, if I was to go to my front page, this would be considered an excerpt. So when you're presenting a summary of a particular post, your excerpts would often be printed out along with the image and the title. And then you've got various other options down here. So explore those and see what you can do with those. Block. So each block that you select, you can actually go and tweak. So you could add additional CSS classes to that if you wanted to. This is actually quite a useful feature if you're writing your own CSS, which we will cover in another video in future. Basically, CSS allows you to add different styles to your HTML. And yeah, that's probably all touch on there for a moment, but just know that if you wanted to ever tweak any of your block settings, you could do that there. There's also a couple other, well, obviously you can go full screen if that's more useful to you while you're editing. There's one more up here, one more set of settings to look at. I don't really use a lot of these, but there are some things in here which you might use. Every now and then I switch to the code editor. So if you ever wanted to copy and paste the raw HTML of the block, then you could do that this way. For example, this is what a block looks like in HTML. That's a paragraph block. You can see by the p tags there. But most of the time you're going to wanting to be in Visual Editor. So yeah, let's leave it on that one for now. But yeah, that is the post edit page. Okay, so let's go and have a look at pages, and we'll have a little sort of comparison to the post pages. So in my particular theme, pages and posts don't really differ in the aesthetic view to the user. They both have this main section here, and they both have this right-hand column with some information about the site. And we also, just have the same stuff. In one of the main differences to point out between a post and a page is that a page can have a completely different aesthetic from a post. So in your particular case, when you're deciding whether or not to use a page or a post, have a think about how they display and which one you prefer for that particular use case. And then on top of that, you would also want to understand that pages do not have the ability to have categories. So remember, if we were to have a look at posts, you can actually add categories to a post, either there in the quick edit or by clicking into the main edit page. Pages don't have that ability, so you're going to want to take that into account. If the page that you're publishing needs to be categorized underneath one of the categories, then select post, create that web page as a post instead of a page. But yeah, just some things to sort of differentiate pages and posts there, but they do share a lot of similarities as well.